Welcome back to the FAU Football Radio Network pregame show from Learfield IMG College. Ken Lavicka with Kevin Rolston. You know him from the KVJ show, 97.9 WRMF, 6 to 10 a.m. weekdays. And Kevin, of course, one half of Two Guys and a Beer. I'm the other half, and the beer is the beer. Funky Buddha Brewery. It is the beer that the Hop Gun and the Floridian are sold at FAU Stadium. Next time we'll be in Boca Raton will be for the Shula Bowl against FIU. That'll come next month. But first things first, a trip to Old Dominion today. And Kevin, frustrating on Friday against Marshall. Just couldn't tackle. And you sit there and you have all these expectations, and Florida Atlantic gets off to the quick start. You fight so hard to take two different leads in the fourth quarter and just can't tackle, and it's just one of those games. Well,
and they got gashed, too. I mean, at least those two massive touchdowns that, you take those off the board and you have better protect on both those. It's a different game.
Yep.
And you just can't do that. I mean, that's kind of they should have won the Marshall game.
They should have, yeah.
And you give up those kind of plays, those two plays. That's the difference. That's how you don't beat Marshall when you should.
And now you're behind the 8-ball in the Conference USA East Division race. It's certainly not over by any stretch, and there's a lot of season left to go. But that's a tough one. That's a hit to take because not only do you now not control your own destiny, but it's also Marshall. And anytime you can beat Marshall, that's a significant deal.
Yeah. How big does the Shula Bowl become next week?
Massive, because FIU appears to have gotten itself together. And but think about this three-game stretch. You have Old Dominion. You're the heavy favorite in this game this afternoon. Then you're at Western Kentucky. They are the East Division leaders in Conference USA.
Yeah.
Florida Atlantic will be going into what's probably going to be a colder climate than they're used to as well. And then it's home against FIU. So this is the pivotal stretch if FAU is going to be in contention 5-6 weeks from now. This is the time of the season now.
Okay, so you look at today. You got Western Kentucky coming up 2 weeks. You got Shula Bowl in 3 weeks. Is there any way, because ODU, they come out of nowhere. Last year they beat Virginia Tech. Is this just one of those sort of, 1-6, something like that right now?
Yeah, it's been rough for them.
So how dangerous is this game for FAU? I mean, right now you're like, this is a palate cleanser. This is setting the record right. I mean, what are the chances here? Because I'm looking at the odds, and the odds aren't good. I mean, it's like 80% chance that FAU is going to win this game. But is this a weird trap game where you're looking ahead and you're thinking Shula Bowl, Western Kentucky, and you just snooze on ODU and you go to Norfolk and get your butt kicked?
The good news, Florida Atlantic has never lost at Old Dominion. Now, newly renovated stadium, haven't seen it quite in the manner in which it is now. Some of the guys, this will be a new environment for them. Some of the guys are making the first trip to Norfolk, but FAU beat Old Dominion on the road the game after they brought Florida to overtime 4 years ago. 2 seasons ago, this is where Jason Driscoll went off for 4 touchdown runs, and FAU blew the doors off of ODU, and that really set the tone for the rest of the undefeated Conference USA season. So not all that concerned, but keep in mind, we saw what happens to a team like Wisconsin when they look ahead a little bit to the Ohio State game.
Yeah.
And you certainly don't want to be looking ahead to Western Kentucky against an ODU squad that has a decent defense that could turn things around on you a little bit.
How defeating is that if you go
boy.
I mean, this is clearly a must-win.
It is a must-win. And the thing with the FAU fan base, and this isn't me disrespecting them, this is me telling the truth, because being bowl eligible has been so few and far between in Florida Atlantic history, even good teams, like I believe this one to be, anytime you suffer a loss, the inevitable doubt's going to creep in. What if this turns into 2 losses, 3 losses, 4 losses? Then you're fighting for bowl eligibility. That's the natural reaction to an FAU fan. Nip that now. Get the job done today and restore people's confidence, and then you move on. But there are some negative thinkers right now because of the history of FAU.
So you say definitely they're going to be bowl eligible at the end of the season?
I would be stunned. I mean, that would be a shocking turn of events because this is a good football team with, in my opinion, the best quarterback in the conference.
What is the most positive thing you're seeing right now with FAU? If you had to say, okay, here are the highlights, and this is our biggest plus, this is our biggest minus.
The fight in this team, and I know that that's like really lame coach speaky, but Brendan Knox just ran through FAU.
Yeah.
It would have been easy. Last year, would have hung heads, would have lost by 14, 20 points. Kept fighting back. Chris Robinson, despite heavy pressure in his face all second half, able to generate 2 dramatic, long scoring drives and retake the lead on 2 different occasions in the fourth quarter. That shows me a lot, and that's why I think they're going to be around. This is still a confident team that has been able to identify all of its individual issues, each loss this season, and get better from it, and that's where I feel good about this team.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw them in Columbus, week 1, I thought, because they got pounded in the first half. I mean, I was like, wow, I've never seen Ohio State that fast, that dominating. And then FAU, they did not give up.
Right.
They came out second half, same personnel, they're still playing the first string, and they put up a fight. They're like, okay, no, we're not going to go down that easy.
And even the UCF loss, you come back at Ball State, and Chris Robinson's throwing the ball all over the place, and John Mitchell's catching 3 touchdown passes. Every time that they have faced a major hurdle where you feel like they could just crash right into it, they have been able to find themselves and spring over it and succeed after that this season. And they've shown a lot of resilience. And I think that that's why they're not only going to become bowl eligible, they are still going to be in this race a month from now. But a lot of it begins today against Old Dominion. Florida Atlantic and Old Dominion in Norfolk. It is 2 guys and a beer. Ken Lavicka and Kevin Rolston, 97.9 WRMF, KVJ show, 6 to 10 a.m. weekdays. And so let's span college football here, and let's get right to Columbus. This one had a lot more clout a week ago before Wisconsin went into Champaign and laid an absolute face planting there at Memorial Stadium. I did not see that coming. I don't think anybody saw that coming. That's a bad Illinois program. I know this because I grew up an Illinois fan. I follow them often, and that's a horrific football team. And what they overpowered Wisconsin. They were so physical with Wisconsin. I thought Wisconsin was the most physical team in the country, but they got beaten up, and that's not going to bode well in Columbus against Ohio State.
Well, I don't think you're going to see the same Wisconsin team, and it goes to show you about will. It's all about that, and this is the toughest part about being a coach, is you don't know from week to week what kind of team you're going to get, and everything about that was so uncharacteristic of Wisconsin. They just did not want to be there, and you cannot say they were not looking ahead to Columbus. They didn't even.
Question.
They were like, we are going to sleepwalk through Champaign, and they were not tackling. The effort was not there, and they made dumb mental mistakes. And I think even from a coaching standpoint, when they got down to the end and they decide not to power the ball with Jonathan Taylor, we're going to throw the ball, and they get that interception. And then the defense, the number 1 defense in the country, can't man up. And Illinois just imposed their will on the number 1 defense in the country. And it was baffling, and it has to go down to Illinois. A lot of times it's cliche, but it's true. Who wants it more? And it's not sometimes the personnel.
Yeah.
It really is the will and the desire, and that was one of those games.
And there are times where such a heavy favorite like that, everything goes against them. All the bounces, they have fluky things happen to them to keep the underdog in the game. There really wasn't that moment. This really was Illinois outplaying Wisconsin in key moments of this game. They honestly, this didn't fall into Illinois' lap. Like, they went and took it from Wisconsin, and that's rare in an upset of that magnitude. And for the Big Ten, this means that Wisconsin, even if they beat Ohio State, Wisconsin's not going to the college football playoff with a loss to Illinois on the resume, just like Ohio State didn't go last year with a loss to Purdue on the resume. So now it comes down to really 2 teams, 3 teams if you want to count Minnesota, but we're still not sold on them yet. It comes down to Ohio State, and it comes down to Penn State. Now, that game is upcoming, but first things first, Wisconsin is at the Horseshoe. I think Wisconsin will hang in for a little bit in this one, but you don't lose to Illinois and then go into Columbus against this Ohio State team and win this game. You just don't.
Well, the numbers are going to tell you, I mean, aside from the Big Ten championship where Ohio State just housed Wisconsin when they won the national championship in 2014, 5 years ago, every single game with Wisconsin, Ohio State wins this decade against Wisconsin has been within a touchdown. I don't see that being any different. I think this really could be a tough game again. I think Wisconsin is going to be like, we got embarrassed. They're still the number one defense somehow, even
Yeah.
with what Illinois did. So
There's something to prove, though, now.
Yeah, statistically,
Yeah.
they're number one. Ohio State's number two. Ohio State bringing in a really top-rated offense, and so it's going to be a battle of wills. You're not going to see that same Wisconsin team. I expect a really tight game on Saturday. I think they're going to really show out, and then you're going to have some questions about Ohio State to see where they are. Ideally, what you want to do, every great program, these top-tier programs, they need that kind of challenge. Now, luckily for Clemson, people keep ragging on Clemson about that North Carolina game. But Clemson got the best thing to happen to them, where they got a team that had no business of being that close to them, keeping it that close, and they didn't do what Ohio State did at Purdue last year.
Right.
It cost them the season.
Yeah.
And all Clemson hears about is North Carolina.
Right.
But they didn't
But they
get the
won.
L.
Yeah,
and that's
exactly.
every team, every top-tier program needs that one game because these kids, they're 18, 19, at the top's 20.
Yeah.
They don't understand that. They believe the hype that they hear week in and week out when they're blowing people away.
Sure.
Ohio State they're just – I'm starting to feel it. Ohio State's getting that inflated head. Nobody can stand with you. You're the best team in the country. We see it. Wisconsin is walking into a great situation on Saturday.
Kevin right now is the most prototypical fan of a major program where it's like, oh man, I'm starting to have doubts.
Coming. It's one of these games. It's coming.
But you are and this is what I appreciate about you because I'm the same way. You are a cynical fan because it is, when's the other shoe going to drop? Ohio State went into this season. People saying this is as close to a rebuild as Ohio State's going to get. But now it looks like they're a potential national championship contender.
Yeah.
But you do see some of the things that make you uncomfortable about Ohio State, and you think someone's going to be able to exploit them.
It looks too good. You don't know where it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, if you would have told me last year at the beginning of the season, Ohio State is going to go 13-1. And they're going to get blown out one game. Pick the game. Who picks Purdue?
Not Purdue. Yeah, not Purdue.
When you play Washington and Penn State
Right.
and Michigan
Yeah.
and everybody else that you had on that schedule last year, you're not going to say Purdue is going to house you.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So that is your early game. And then in the SEC, you have a massive one. Auburn and LSU. Ninth-ranked Tigers on the road to take on the second-ranked Tigers in Death Valley. Not a night game like you love there in Baton Rouge, but still, this is clearly, other than Ohio State, Wisconsin, this might be now, because of Wisconsin's loss last week, the game of the day in college football. LSU, to me, seems like a team of destiny, especially seeing that they may end up missing Tua, who just underwent surgery for that high ankle sprain. You don't know who is going to be under center for Alabama once those two teams do meet a couple of weeks from now. You win this one, and LSU is in the driver's seat to win the West, go to the SEC title game, and put itself in the playoff.
You got the same problem, though, that Ohio State has. LSU has been hearing nothing about how you have got your quarterback is going to win the Heisman.
Sure.
You guys are great. Who's going to beat you? Tua's not going to be there. There's a lot of that rat poison is going around into LSU's veins right now.
Yeah.
And some of these teams, you start to feel uneasy when you're looking at LSU and you're looking at Ohio State. Two teams right here at this week, challenging opponents, and they've heard nothing about how great both of these teams are. What do you think? I mean, is without a doubt, are both Ohio State and LSU going to come out of this weekend with wins?
No, that's not without a doubt at all. And I would say Auburn probably learned some lessons a couple of weeks ago going to Gainesville and hanging in there against the Gators, but giving up that late, long touchdown in the fourth quarter. Auburn just being tested on the road 2 weeks ago, not passing that test, but playing very competitively in a hostile environment. Nothing they're going to see in Death Valley Saturday is going to be much different from what they saw in Gainesville a couple of weeks ago. Like they're ready to go for this one. And Auburn, they're not national championship material, but don't you get the sense they're like this scrappy, annoying, good enough football team that could throw everything into flux in the SEC?
Yeah, because you got a young quarterback that is really starting to put it together. And every game is big for him with that experience that he's getting. And you look at the Auburn defense, pretty solid. They got a great front seven. And you got to say, is Joe Burrow going to see is he seen yet what he's going to see coming up on Saturday? And this could be a twist for him, too.
Well, speaking of Joe Burrow, we saw a lot of him actually last week against Mississippi State as he was being sacked in that game. He had his pants pulled down in front of 82,000 people.
First of all, why is he not tying up? And is that boy not wearing drawers?
Yeah, exactly. So this is what I was thinking, because you played Little League Baseball. I played Little League Baseball. I was a catcher, and I started catching when I was in like second grade. What I didn't know when I decided to take up that position was that you had to wear a cup.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, I don't want to wear this. It's uncomfortable. But the first time I took a foul tip off the cup, I was like, you know what? That's why you wear a cup. And then I had no problem with it afterwards.
Yeah.
So when I see that, and again, that was a white ass. Like,
that boy. Yeah, he's not seeing the sun.
Was
you know he's
pale.
in the football pro. Yeah, he ain't at the pool.
Yeah, and I get it. Like, all of our backsides are going to be pretty pale. They're not seeing the sun, but that was like especially transparent.
Stood out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That could be a very rich backside and number 1 overall pick backside we saw.
Maybe.
We'll see. But you're right. Like, what is he wearing? Because it did not look like there was a jock strap there.
No, there's no drawers.
Didn't see anything. Yeah. Like, how is he in that spot without wearing some sort of protection or some sort of barrier between? Because those football pants are also, they tend to be a little bit transparent.
Yeah.
Like, what is he doing there? I don't understand.
I don't know. I mean, I think probably he got himself a jockey endorsement when we get to the NFL.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, maybe that was calculated. Hey, dog, can you maybe tug on the drawers a little bit? They're going to break away.
What is what's the company with the little kid who's having the dog like pull back on the diaper?
Yeah, that's you got it in Miami, the big old building is down there.
Yeah, it's
a sun.
It's the
sunscreen.
Lotion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like maybe he's got an endorsement deal with that or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was all world moon action there.
It was pretty impressive. I don't think we've ever seen that.
But I do think that you and I saw the same thing. Like, wait a minute, he's not wearing anything.
Oh, the ladies too. I mean, you're like the star quarterback at LSU. You got a great tight buttocks that we've seen on TV. I mean, you're in the SEC.
Yeah, exactly.
Hot Southern girls.
Yeah, right.
Joe Burrow, living large, man.
Dude can't lose.
No.
He can't lose, even when
that's a win for him. That's not a loss for him.
That's the thing. For you and I, that would be a total L. For him,
that's
just a win all the way around. So we can make fun of him all we want.
He wins the Heisman probably because of that.
Yeah, that was his Heisman moment.
That was his Heisman moment.
He does on the field. It was his pants falling down that makes
He's
it his
a
Heisman
shoo-in
moment.
now.
That's right. Before we get back to talking FAU and this matchup with Old Dominion, I do want to ask you about Oregon. What a win at Washington for them. And I still maintain the Pac-12 isn't going to the college football playoff. And Oregon has ended Washington's chances. But, man, Oregon is a good team. Mario Cristobal, remember, he got fired. He didn't leave. He got fired from FIU.
Yeah.
Like, how stupid do they look now? Because now he has completely turned that Oregon program back around, and they're a national championship contender next year, the year after that.
Yeah, it was a big gutsy win. The fact they stayed in the game the way they did, the way that they came back at the end. I think they got a couple gifts here and there that kind of helped make that happen. The defense looked a little bit more suspect than what you've seen, but I mean they have got a top tier quarterback, and any of these teams you're talking about, it's so evident. You really, honestly, anymore, you've got to have that top tier quarterback with the way the defenses are. All the teams we're discussing. If Auburn gets a win against LSU and they continue to win out, and something happens where they don't make it, that is going to prop up Oregon. And stranger things could happen. OSU, Ohio State, they have still got Wisconsin, Penn State, and Michigan on their schedule, and then a possible rematch against Wisconsin again in a Big Ten championship. 4 losable games.
Right.
Anything could happen.
Right.
There could be some teams that we're putting right now in the college football playoff is shoo-ins that the brakes could fall off any of them. And who knows? Oregon's sitting around. Oregon cruises through the Pac-12. I don't know. I don't want to rule them out yet. No. Everybody has. Everybody's ruled them out. But keep in mind, they pretty much lost in the last play of the game against Auburn. Auburn continues to win, and so does Oregon, and crazy things happen. I don't want to count the Pac-12 out yet in Oregon. They could be in it.
Two Guys and a Beer brought to you by Funky Buddha Brewery, Florida Atlantic, and Old Dominion coming up here on the FAU Football Radio Network from Learfield IMG College. Let's wrap up with this. I grew up in the Midwest like you. I never really was a massive seafood fan, but when we travel, we eat the fare of the region that we've gone to, and in Norfolk, Virginia, it is seafood. It is crabs, and I have developed a taste for seafood. For you, like when we've lived in Florida for an awful long time now. For you, when did that acquired taste come about?
Oh, pretty quick. Stone crabs, man. Somebody's like, you got to try this. I never had it. I'm like, it's like, just the nectar of the sea. Those things are amazing. It's unbelievable.
Very poetic of you.
My gosh.
My broadcast partner, Chris Bartels, a couple of years ago, we go out in Norfolk and we sit down to eat at the seafood restaurant, and he goes, I didn't want to bother you guys with this. By the way, I'm allergic to shellfish. We're like, bro, like you need to tell us this stuff, man. Like you can't. He's like, I'll get chicken tenders, but no, like they're probably cooking it in the same stuff that like the seafood's being
absolutely.
fried in,
as you're walking out and his face is turning red and bubbling.
Yeah, I don't need to EpiPen you outside of the restaurant. Yeah, but Norfolk is great for seafood. If anybody has an opportunity to get there. Also, the Naval Yard is really, really cool in Norfolk, and it's always good to be back here. Kevin, thank you, my friend. Cheers, and we'll talk to you next week before Western Kentucky, okay?
Big stuff, man.
Kevin Rolston, KVJ Show, 6 to 10 a.m. weekdays, 97.9 WRMF. I'm Ken Lavicka. We'll take a break. When we come back, it'll be myself, the aforementioned shellfish allergy-laden Chris Bartels, and Mike Mareshko as we continue on with the pregame show. It's Florida Atlantic football from Learfield IMG College.